Hello and welcome back. It feels like it's been an age, but we are here, whether you're watching us live or whether you're watching us on replay. It's good to have you here. We're going back down to the lower league lingo, and it's where we all love to be. So we'll be here on the other side of this. I'll never get old of that intro. I really do. So boppy. I love it. Okay, well, we are back. It is low league lingo, as I said. And, I mean, bless them. The low leagues have been playing now for many weeks, some of them, although there are still some. Looking at you over there in the Midlands, John, who just can't be bothered and aren't starting until this week. So very laid back there in the Midlands, having little siestas like the Spaniards do. But we are very much looking forward to having a coverage of tier 5, not year 5. That's definitely school. We're looking at tier 5 next week, but we're looking this week at tier 3 and tier 4. So we're going to be very much looking forward to doing that. But just before we do, let's check in with the gang. It's lovely to have them both here. John, I've just alluded to you there. How are you? Lovely to see you back. Can't hear you though, mate. I mean,
he needs to unmute his microphone, doesn't he?
Oh, schoolboy ever. No, I really enjoyed it last season and glad to be back. Something I look forward to each week, and it forces me in a nice way to keep up to date with everything that's going on around the area. So, yeah, looking forward to this season as well, Barry.
Absolutely, should be incredibly good. And of course, Gaza, we have already met once to discuss everything that was going on around the lower leagues, but lovely to have you back. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. Yeah, good. It's certainly been a whirlwind start to the season. And yeah, looking forward to getting going, seeing what new teams get added to John's bingo card. I don't think we need to add the new Saints on there, although he may try and shoehorn them into conversations. I don't think we're going to cover the Welsh League, so we might be safe from that one, but I'm sure there's going to be others.
If there is anyone on this planet who can shoehorn a Welsh
There's one new one. There's going to be one new one.
One new one. Well, let's see if we can work out who that's going to be. Add it to your bingo card.
I'm shocked, I tell you.
You shouldn't be. He collects them, right? People collect stickers. It's unbelievable. He looks through all the clubs at the fixtures going, got. Oh, need that. Let's go. Let's go get them. Unbelievable. Right. Well, like I say, we're going to kick off, and we're kicking off as ever with tier 3. And as ever, we go from north to south. I don't know why I do it, but we do. So there we go. And we're kicking off with the Northern Premier Division. Now, the Northern Premier Division was an incredibly interesting one last season, and it looks like it's going to be an incredibly interesting one again. We've got a lot of teams there with quite an interesting point spread. Just the one side so far that hasn't managed to get any points. Gareth, you are our usual Northern representative. We split ourselves, for those of you that don't know. So there are 3 of us, obviously, on the panel at the moment. And the Northern sides are generally looked at by Gareth, and Midlands ones are generally looked at by John. The Southern ones by myself, and of course we have Stu Barker when he can get on, and he sometimes helps us with the Southwest and the Southern as well. So that's kind of where we go, but we all have a little chat about it because we've all picked up little bits as we go in. That's the whole point. So Gaza, we'll let you kick off. The Northern Premier Division really has kicked off with some interesting scores. What's your take so far on the early doors?
And a few surprises, a few things that shouldn't really surprise anybody. I think if you look at number 1 and 2 on that table, that's not going to come as a massive shock to many people. But then you cast your eyes down a little bit further, and Hull City, with all of their issues towards the end of last season, being up there in 3rd place currently, is, I think people would say that's a surprise. Burnley and Wolves have played each other already and shared the points. So that draw for each of those sides is against each other. Hull laid down a marker and beat Stoke. So that's Stoke's only defeat of the season. Last year's 3rd place side. Has been some kind of movements around at Stoke, but I'm sure John will kind of touch on them more. They're a good side. So Hull. Sorry, it's Halifax that beat Stoke. I am lying to you all. Hull picked up some great points elsewhere, which escapes my memory at the moment. Halifax beating Stoke was the shock. That's their only 3 points this season so far, but a fantastic 3 points it was. I think their first goal, the move actually started from a Stoke corner, and there was just fantastic counter-attacking football. Punished Stoke by kind of getting that goal. I think the league as a whole just looks really competitive at the moment. Derby will be looking to kind of get there on the ladder soon, but if you go from 1st to 8th, I know we're only 3 games in, but any of those teams could in theory be top come Monday morning. So it would take an almighty result for Loughborough or Middlesbrough to do that in terms of the goal difference, but in theory it's possible. I think you'll be looking at those promoted sides this year. Loughborough and Middlesbrough will be looking at that table thinking, we've had a solid start. We picked up 4 points 3 games in, and we'll be kind of looking to push on from there. I think Feds with their big stadium move will also be looking to add some points. For those that are not aware, they played their final game ever at Jericho Lane when they got beaten by Wolves, and they will now play their home games at Walton Hall Park, which we obviously used to be the home of Everton, but since they have moved to Goodison, that became available. So I think it's fantastic for the city's premier kind of non-Liverpool or Everton side to kind of be housed at the home of Liverpool FA. So fantastic. And I think it's set up to be a really interesting season. There's been lots of talking points already. Sorry, I couldn't not mention these. Burnley have had Matt Baird resign already. He is on gardening leave currently. There's been no real talk about where he's going to go, but I think it's a relatively open secret at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him pop up somewhere further up the pyramid shortly. So they currently have a manager in temporary charge. So they'll be looking to recruit somebody with the kind of squad they've built there. I don't want to kind of lay my marker out too quick, too soon, but I think they should be favourites. Whether or not that will translate coming into the season, who knows? Wolves in second place. I think they are the other kind of title contenders. I think we had a good chat with the Wolves podcast, didn't we? And second place, I think, seems the minimum expectation for them. So I wouldn't be surprised if they are the 2 teams really pushing for it this year. But don't count out the potential for that party to be spoilt by somebody like Rugby Borough, who one suspects will be spending a few weeks without their manager on the touchline after he was sent off for approaching referee and making his feelings abundantly clear at half-time before he was shown a straight red card. There is footage of it. You can make up your own mind about that. I think deserved a straight red personally. It's just daft. Regardless of how poor a refereeing performance is, there's not really an excuse for that. We all become frustrated with referees. There's not a single one of us on this panel that hasn't been frustrated. But there's ways and means to talk to officials, and that was not one of them. I realise I've waffled for a long time there, so I will let the expert on that himself come in and fill in any gaps that I've missed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Daniel there, interesting point already. At least they haven't changed it to WSL3. There's still time, Daniel. At some point, it might happen. Perhaps have the WSL3 North and the WSL3 South. God knows. Don't give them ideas, Daniel. Don't let them do it. But yeah, there's some interesting points made there, John, by Gareth there, talking about Burnley, obviously, and the fact that Matt Beard was just left. It was, I mean, honestly, I don't want to spend hours sitting here talking about what was going on there, but I find that really difficult to comprehend in my head, that you would sit there. I mean, Burnley have decided they want to become professional, and they're looking to get themselves up into the WSL2. They're really putting the effort in and putting the money into it. Matt Beard sits there and goes, yeah, I'm up for this. This is a project that I'm really interested in. And if the reports about Leicester are true, that's mad. Why would you want to go to Leicester, which is a side that just seems abundantly unable to put anything into their team and are quite happy to see them languish at the bottom of the WSL? Why would you want to go and do that when you've got the opportunity to do this with Burnley? And you can see already they've started incredibly well. So yeah, your thoughts on that, your thoughts on Loughborough and Middlesbrough, obviously the two promoted sides, as Gareth says, very interesting what's going on there. Rugby Borough, did the gent deserve the red card? He was a little bit on the aggressive side. I don't think he touched him. There was a couple of things pointed out there as if he was about to start performing some sort of RKO. It wasn't quite that bad, but he was a little bit grumpy. We do have to say that. And of course, Halifax, they were given a reprieve last season. Still sort of hanging around near the bottom. Grant, it's only 3 games. You can hardly, stake your hat on it. But there's a few there, talking points. So give it a go. What do you reckon?
Just to reiterate on what Gareth said first, I do just want to touch on Hull a little bit there as well, because that is like one nice success story so far. Gareth did mention that they had a bit of a rocky summer at the end of last season, so to be top of their National League Cup group and 3rd in the league. The other win was against West Bromwich Albion, Gareth, 4-1. So that was a great win for them, and to draw against Stoke as well. It's fantastic, yeah. Rugby, Borough, obviously you mentioned about Lee Birch there, but just to quote what he said, he said, I told the referee what I thought of his performance, and he gave me a red. And what interested me the most out of all of it was the divided opinion on social media. So some was kind of backing him up, and then some was really laying into him. And I think it's just all down to interpretation. We don't actually know what was actually said or how aggressive it was, but definitely a controversial talking point a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? Yeah. Burnley, obviously with Matt Beard leaving, I don't know. It's funny how everything seems to happen in one go. So it's almost as if he was approached or he knew a role was coming up elsewhere. Why he would go, I don't know. He'll have to, obviously, I'm sure quotes will come out at some point. But it's going to be interesting. I think that'll slow down Burnley a little bit, if I'm honest. I did see Burnley as favourites at the start, but I'm a big fan of consistency. And I think when you look at the top 4 sides, I think Wolves are the consistent team. If you base that over the last 3 or 4 years, they've got the same manager. They've built their squad gradually. There's been like a natural progression in regards to younger players coming through, but also losing some of the older players. So I think Wolves will be up there pushing. And then Hull City again 3rd. So obviously they're not probably going to stay there, but a nice story, because they could have quite easily collapsed after the summer with players leaving or just getting 5-0 beatings. But instead they've completely won games and games that they probably weren't expecting to win. You mentioned Stoke. So Stoke was finished the season last season very, very strongly. Change of manager. So they got Sarah Richardson from Loughborough Lightning. Didn't know too much about her, but I've got sort of a friend who plays there now at Stoke and speaks highly of her and the whole club. So I'm sure Stoke will find their feet. Currently sitting 5th. Bit of a shock loss against Halifax and a draw against Hull. So they're not quite kicking off the way that I thought they would. But obviously with a new manager, quite a few new players coming in, I'm not overly surprised at that. More good news, you mentioned Liverpool Feds, Gareth, about the new stadium. West Bromwich Albion are finally playing a little bit closer to home. So they're playing at the Alexander Stadium. It's only 15 minutes away from the Hawthorns. So bearing in mind that they used to play in Redditch, which was a good journey away from West Brom, Hensford even further away from West Brom, and in Sutton as well at some point. This is actually a bit more close to home. So Whether or not everyone's for it, I'm not too sure, because when you're playing these big stadiums with only, a few hundred at tops, best, it is always a controversial talking point. But I think, the fans have cried out to play at a bit more of a nearer team to West Brom, and they have. So, well done to them, and I'm sure they'll kick on from there. Currently sitting sixth in the league. When I look at this, I also look at the upcoming fixtures as well. A couple of stories, a couple of talking points. So down towards the bottom, you've got Calcer and Derby, which is next week. So not this Sunday coming, the Sunday after. Derby currently on 0 points, and I wouldn't say I'm surprised, but it is a team that you're thinking is going to be battling in the relegation area. And Sporting Calcer, also one of those teams. So is that going to be a big, not so much a decider at this early stage, but Derby aren't going to get too many points off too many teams, and they'll be looking at Calcer as one of those teams. I can see Barry smiling. I don't know if he's ticking off a list of my bingo cards yet. So yeah, I'll give him that one. And I will just finish up on this one. Albion against Stoke, going to be the game of the week, in my opinion, in this league, at the Alexander Stadium. Stoke haven't started off greatly, as I just mentioned. Albion at home. 2 big badges are going head to head in a big stadium. Let's see what the turnout is with the attendance, and let's just see what the marketing is up with this as well, because there's a lot to go for in this game.
No, there really is, absolutely. And yes, for those watching along, Sporting Calcer is definitely one that is on the bingo card. So if you're making your own bingo cards at home, that's the first one to add on to the list. And there we go. Not just mentioned, but then highlighted on a fixture as well. So you'll get used to it. We love John for this very reason. He's got a multitude of clubs that he likes to highlight, and why not? Because he does. In the nicest way, John, get about a bit. So that's all good. Bless him. But yeah, I think you've all made some great points on that one. I think it's nice to see that the 2 clubs that have come up are very much sort of stuck in the middle at the moment, and it could literally go either way. They could have an incredibly good season and really sort of consolidate in the league, but equally it could all go the other way. But it will be very interesting. Halifax, for me, that's a big story. I really want to see how they get on this season, because last season was, I think, by their own admission, not what they would be wanting. So yeah, very interesting to see how that one goes. And like I say, hopefully we will be seeing a side that does well. So we are going to take a quick look now at the opposite side of the country, and that's where we move to the Southern Premier Division. And I'm so sorry, I'm still getting used to this laptop for trying to make it a little bit easier for you to see. So there we go. This is the Southern Premier, and as you can see, in my eyes, it's very similar to the Northern Premier in terms of the fact that there's been quite a bit of a mixture of results. You've got 3 teams at the top that have all managed to stay unbeaten so far. And very interesting for me there is, of course, seeing AFC Bournemouth come up and do well, because they have literally just been promoted, and having achieved that, coming up from Division 1 Southwest, they're now sitting at the top of the table, which is a very interesting place for them to be. And like we say, a very long season still to go. But to come off of the back of a really successful season in the Southwest and to now be sat at the top of the Southern, I think is really quite good. On the other side of that, the Southeast, it was Real Bedford who came up, and they're not finding life. Real Beeford, as I appear to have called them today, but Royal Bedford, there we go. I knew there'd be one, and I thought I'd done so well this season, but there we go. Real Bedford, they are stuck down there in 9th at the moment with just a 1 win. So mixture of fortunes so far for those teams. Now, Billericay were, of course, the side that were given the reprieve this season, and you've got to look at Billericay this season. And I shouldn't laugh, and if you're a Billericay fan, I'm incredibly sorry, but 3 games in, and it's already a negative 23 goal difference. And when you see that, you really do fear for how their season is going to go. And I would want to see Billericay do a lot better than they currently are. So that's a little bit sad to see Billericay doing that. But negative 23 is an incredibly hard one. They had a 9-0 in their most recent game. That was against Plymouth Argyle, who you can see are doing pretty well up there in fourth. They lost 8-1 to Gwalior United, who are, of course, up there in fifth as well, and 7-0 to Bournemouth. So you could argue that maybe they're playing against sides that are going to be in the top half, but still very, very difficult. Hashtag United, strange to see them towards the bottom. They generally tend to do quite well and tend to be quite competitive. So to see them without points as yet is, a bit of a strange one. They lost as well, 1-0 to Gwalior United in their most recent game, which again wasn't ideal. Plymouth Argyle again beating them as well, 3-0 in the first game of the season. So I think if you're these sides, Hashtag and Billericay, you'd expect Hashtag to try and get a few more points on the board and to climb that table. But yeah, for me, really interesting to see them there. Wimbledon, obviously just above the dotted line as well. So quite a few teams there. The eagle-eyed amongst you will have spotted that within this league, there is another one of John's bingo list. And I'm going to leave it to you because John's about to speak. And when he does, he's going to mention a team. And it'll be very interesting to see if you can spot which team it is that we will be ticking off of John's bingo list. But that's kind of where we are. Three big teams. Bournemouth, Lewis, good to see them doing well, and Watford as well. So talk to us a little bit, John, especially about the Midlandy type teams. What you're thinking?
Yeah, my original thoughts, obviously Cheltenham is the largest, is the most north team in the south. So are they Midlands? I don't know. Maybe not. They can be Midlands if there's too many northern teams. But yeah, good to see Cheltenham got be mid-table. They had a good season last season with two cup finals and survival of relegation, and they started off really well here as well. They have had a change of coaching staff this season, so. A lot of new players coming in and out. I know some of those players were set up from last season that came in over the summer quite early, and they've started off really well. Exeter actually below them, so we know how well Exeter done last season, and they're like red mid-table. Can't get too carried away in regards to league positions just yet with 3 games played, but I do agree with what you said, Barry. When you start looking at the goal average and you're losing quite heavily, that is something that does cause a bit of concern. So when you do see Billericay, who just about survived last year, then to be in that position, it's a shame that they couldn't build on that. But I know, not first hand, but supporting teams who are towards the bottom of leagues, I know how good it can be. So so I mean, good luck to Billericay, and we definitely would like to see, obviously, them get some momentum and get a couple of points on the board. The other one is obviously where you mentioned Bournemouth, so I won't need to mention them again. But I would mention Plymouth with a new manager there. So Plymouth obviously getting quite a few points on the board early. Quite well invested from what I hear around the area. So I think that would be my sneaky outside bet on the promotion this season if I was going to go in there early. So good luck to Plymouth in what they're doing down there. They seem to be setting up really well. I don't know too much about the others, Barry, so I don't know if anybody else wants to talk about the other teams, but a few teams that I've been looking at over the summer all seem to be doing fairly well.
Yeah. Any observations for you, Gaza?
Yeah, just that Billericay versus Real Bedford from this coming weekend is going to be a really important game because, if Billericay are going to hope to stay up this season, they're going to be targeting games like this one against Real Bedford, especially considering they are the hosts. So they're at home. You imagine if they're able to get 3 points here, then that could be the start of something, a bit of confidence, maybe something to move on to. But you imagine if Real Bedford pick that up and then Billericay find themselves 6 points adrift of a team they would be hoping to finish above. I know the budgets may be vastly different between those two sides, but I think regardless of who the promoted sides are, sometimes you will look at them and you will target them as being teams to get points against. Potentially not Bournemouth, given the kind of backing that they may or may not have from the men's team. I actually don't know. But I'll definitely be paying attention to that game this weekend.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree, Daniel. A little bit harsh there, Billericay down more like it could be true this season. I really, really do fear for how Billericay are going to get on. But Gareth is quite right. That's a good point to make there. I'm going to be playing Real Bedford. And, Real Bedford were on a real high when they were promoted from the South East last season. I think if you're asking me to call it, Gareth, I think I would say that Real Bedford might just win that one. And if that's the case, you'd have to look at, like I say, Billericay and wonder what is going to change for them. But you never know. It's only 3 games gone, like we said. And so as a result, anything can happen. It really could change. So we're going to take a look at Tier 4 now. And in Tier 4, obviously, there are 4 divisions, all split up into the North, the Midlands, the South East, and the Southwest. For those that aren't sure, if you were sure and you did know, sorry, didn't mean to tell you something you already knew. But there we go. You might get new people. You just never know. So the North here, as you can see, we've got 12 teams still in that one. We'll go straight back to Gareth to talk about this. But obviously, the changes this season, we saw Doncaster Rovers Bells. We were sure they were going to go down. They were given the reprieve. And look at them at the moment. That will be a sight for sore eyes for them in a good way. You've got Chester Street Town and Wythenshawe, the 2 sides who were promoted this season. And of course, Blackburn Rovers, who some of you might have seen in WSL2 last season and might be wondering how it is that they've managed to get relegated 3 divisions. And the answer to that is voluntarily, which is quite something. But we spoke about that. We've done the politics on that. So, Gareth, for you, looking at this Division 1 North, spoiler alert, Gareth does spend a lot of time in this division, so he does know quite a bit about it. But yeah, how's it shaping up for you? Nice to see, as we said about the promoted sides, nice to see Wythenshawe up there doing quite well, and equally, all right, Chester Street Town not doing quite so well, but like I say, Donny Rovers, a historical side, good to see them up there.
Yeah, I think the main thing here is Cheadle have picked up where they left off last season. In more ways than one. The first one is winning. The second one is keeping it nice and tight in terms of that goal difference. So they are a side that make themselves really difficult to beat. They don't score tons of goals. But they're super difficult to beat, super difficult to break down. And, if you are going to beat them, you need to take your chances against them. And I think we've seen that already this season in the league. They did play Stockport at the weekend in the Cup, and that finished 2-2. So, you can score goals against them, but I think most games they're going to score goals and they're going to make it difficult for you to score them against them. So they've picked up as they left off. I think if you look at that league, it's very competitive, particularly now with second place being a playoff spot. To have 5 teams on 6 points, essentially tied for second place, is impressive, is important. I think it's good for the competition. You look at, obviously I can talk about Wythenshawe. We had a difficult opening day against Stockport. Got beat 5-0. I don't really know what happened. We just didn't play well, didn't turn up on the day. I feel like Stockport were the better side, but also don't think that they necessarily would say they were out of third gear, I don't think. So a frustrating one, but bounce back. And we've looked at, I think you've got to look at some of these teams and think where can we pick up points? Obviously, every team will do that. But that late win against Norton looks particularly good now that they have beaten Stockport last weekend. They've beaten Chester Street as well. And yeah, when you look at teams like Chester Street and Blackburn, and to have 6 points on them, we're in a good spot. I think for I don't really know what everyone's targets are going to be, but we've not come up to be in a relegation fight. We want to be well clear of that, and we want to kind of see how far we can push it. And by beating teams like Norton, we're obviously there and hanging around. And the next couple of games are massive for us. Leeds United this weekend, Durham the weekend after at home, and then there's a break for another National League Cup game, and then the FA Cup after that. But next 2 league games, huge. And if we can come away with points from those, we're going to wait and see where we are. But I'm also fully aware that is the response that everyone's going to be having. If you look at this weekend, Blackburn play Stockport, so that'll be something that Stockport will be looking to pick up 3 points from, and Blackburn will be looking to get some on the board. Cheadle host Doncaster, so it's an opportunity for Doncaster to flex and see if they can back up their early sort of form and league position. Cheadle will obviously be looking to get that win over a team that is on their heels. Durham host Huddersfield, so I think Durham will be a little bit disappointed with the start to their season, but obviously universities come back soon, and I have no doubt that Durham, having playing at the university in terms of their ground, and being a big university town or city, is Durham a city? Somebody will correct me. They will tap into that population of students to add to their side. Norton host Cheadle, Chorley rather. So that's a nice away day for Chorley, up towards Middlesbrough way. Again, a good mid-table battle to see who can claim the points there. I think those northeast trips for a northwest side are always ones where you think this is going to be tough. You get off the coach after being on there for 3 hours, and you've then got to switch on and focus and play a game in an hour's time. It can be challenging, but obviously there's swings and roundabouts because the northeast sides have to come down to us in the northwest as well. Like I mentioned, Wythenshawe host Leeds. Both sides, I think, will be looking at that potentially for points. Both sides have dropped points this season. I think both sides have shown that you can get something against them. We're hoping that that's not the case, and obviously Leeds will be hoping the same. I think Leeds will want to be pushing on towards the top of the league this year. I think especially with there being a playoff, they've got to be targeting that top 2. And then finally, York host Chester Street, which with the league table at the moment, with York having a couple of bad results in terms of the number of goals conceded in a row, that could be impactful towards the end of the season, both this fixture and the reverse. Chester Street will be looking to get their season up and running. York will be hoping to put some daylight between them and the bottom 2. So lots to play for. This was one of my favourite leagues in the country last season. So close, came down to the wire, literally couldn't have been any closer. Title was decided on goal difference. And if we had the playoff last season, who knows where Cheadle would be right now. But yeah, I think definitely one to keep an eye on. I think that relegation scrap is going to be tasty. I think the fight for the title and the playoff is going to be equally as closely contested. I don't want to stick my neck out really and say where I think those top 2 places are going to go to, or even those bottom 2, because I just don't know. And that is the joy of it. And I think that's the benefit of the playoff, is there is now just that bit extra to play for. And obviously over the course of 90 minutes in a cup final, which essentially is what it is, anything can happen. And that will be, I would love to be there as one of those teams. But, as a,
oh, It's all gonna, oh, bless him. It's all gone a little bit wrong there for Gareth. He went a little bit dark, turned into a shadow.
No.
And that's it. He's been taken by a Dementor, it seems. So we shall let Gareth deal with his magic or his Wi-Fi, whichever it might be. And while we're there, John, I was going to ask you, and you sounded like he was pretty much there with his conversation. Is there anything or anybody there that sort of stands out for you? I mean, it's strange, the things that you think of, because Chester the Street Town, I almost feel like I've got a little bit of a soft spot for. I don't know where very many people were born, but Brian Robson was born in Chester the Street. That's where he was from, and I just remember seeing it when I was younger in the match magazines, and it's always stuck in my head because it's a place that you don't hear about too often. So yeah, I've got a little bit of a soft spot for Chester the Street. You want to see them do well, but anything there for you on the north, or are you ready to move on to the Midlands for you?
Just very quickly on this one, just two teams that I'm looking out for. Huddersfield, because they used to be tier 3, so you always worry a little bit that when a team gets relegated from any league, but when they do get relegated from 3 to 4, do players then move on and they fall again? And hopefully that's not the case with Huddersfield, because they survived it last year and now they're pushing at the top at this early stage this year. So that's obviously good news for Huddersfield. And then the other one will be Leeds. I'm still waiting for when a Leeds going to pounce and start to get towards the top. I thought they might have done it last season, but there was a little way off at the end, and the season before there was close but not quite there. Will this be the season that they obviously move forward? But maybe not. I can see Gareth come back. Did you want to just finish what you were saying there, Gareth?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully Leeds don't pounce this weekend is the main thing from what you said there. But I was pretty much finished, but just that second place is going to be fantastic for a neutral, both all the way through the season, keeping an eye on that race for that spot. And then at the end of the season, I really hope the National League make a big deal of it and push it and promote it. And we kind of have a good neutral venue in the same sense that we do for the Cup and Plate finals. Maybe not on the same scale as that, but a good neutral venue. Let's get people there and see how many people we can fill out.
No, absolutely that. So there we go. That is the Division 1 North, and I seem to recall it being quite a good league last season as well. So it will be very interesting to see how they get on this season. So yeah, that was them. We're obviously going to move now to the Midlands. If you've been following carefully and working out that I've been starting at the top of the country and working the way back down, as we always do. So yeah, we are going to pop to the Midlands as soon as I have got ourselves sorted there. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Obviously, the Midlands, as we well know, is where John's going to be talking about. They have got Kidderminster. They managed to get promoted, as did Sheffield FC. And then you've got a little team called Stourbridge, who you probably won't hear too much about, to be honest with you. That's a joke, by the way. That's another one of his bingo list. Is another team who were relegated. So this is the Division 1 Midlands with Peterborough and Boldmere St Michael's, another place that I quite like, just because I think they work incredibly hard, and it's nice to see some of these smaller teams and names that we don't see quite so often in football. So yeah, Peterborough and Boldmere St Michael's up there. Stourbridge currently in the bottom 2. But yeah, Kidderminster and Sheffield both doing reasonably well, mid-table-ish so far. So John, what's been happening in the Midlands?
Much like Gareth said just and all of last season, I'm the same with this league. So this is my favourite league, the National League. It's got so much competition. I don't think any team, it's not like tier 3 where there's like hundreds of thousands of pounds difference in budget. I don't think it's that kind of league. Yes, there's wicked teams in the league, but not to that extent. So I think that really helps. Game to game, anyone can beat anyone, and we've kind of seen that already this season. So yeah, this was my favourite league last season, and as you rightly pointed out, Barry, there's 2 more reasons now why this is my favourite league, with Stourbridge being relegated into it and Kiddie Harriers being promoted into it. And funnily enough, they play each other this Sunday at Stourbridge, So I why not highlight that one as well. And funnily enough, I'm so close to Stourbridge Stadium that I'm actually sitting in my conservatory tonight, so I could hear the men's game. So I could actually hear them over the crowd if Stourbridge men's team actually get a goal. So I haven't heard one yet. Just heard a bit of rain. Also, it's worth noting as well. Have you noticed that there's been 18 games and no draws? Not bad. No draws. That's a bit of an unusual one after 18 games. I don't know what the odds are. Does that mean much? Well, if you're a team that's in the relegation area, possibly, because now you can't get a draw or two to quickly climb out of the relegation area or to catch up. You do actually need to get a win off somebody. So it'll be interesting to see how the Stourbridge Lincoln game gets on a little bit later in the year, because all eyes on that one at the moment. I would also say after game 2, a lot of people that I speak to are predicting the top 3 to stay the same all season and the bottom 4 to stay the same all season. Now, that is only obviously at this early stage, that's a bold statement. But when you see how strong that Peterborough, Balmere and Leafield were last season, finishing 3rd, 4th and 5th, they've all got stronger over the summer. And then you look at how Stourbridge and Lincoln have begun this season, with Worcester and Sutton closely in front now, but nearly relegated last season. You can kind of see why the people do think the top 3 will stay the same and the bottom 4 will stay the same. And I think, I could be wrong here, but anyone feel free to correct me. I think the last game of the season is actually Balmere against Leafield. So you talk about playoffs there, Gareth. Wouldn't it be great if the winner of that final game of the season actually means something towards the promotion as well? Northampton, I haven't spoke too much about those. So they finished 2nd last year. Gradually building. A lot of people spoke highly of them. They had a bit of a change this summer. The top goal scorer, Jade Bell, we mentioned her on the show all last season. You know, the league's top goal scorer by a country mile. She moved on, and also 1 or 2 midfielders moved on. They signed Tilly Phantom, who played in Tier 3 last season. Chloe Finn, an experienced Tier 4 midfielder. But they haven't quite started this season the way that they were last season. However, I do think it's worth noting that they have played Leafield and they have played Balmere already. So even though they've lost a couple of games, it is against 2 of the more stronger competitions. A couple of ones to look out for, a few results just to mention. Worcester won Sutton Coldfield, which I thought was really important because those were the 2 that was towards the bottom of the league last year and probably this year. They've got that allowed Worcester to get some points on the board, and then Sutton got some points on the board in the first game of the season. So it looks like the Worcester and Sutton at the moment are winning the 6 pointers, as you can say, whereas Stourbridge and Lincoln are still waiting to get some of those. And just one last one. Earlier today, Leafield tweeted out former Lioness player, Luco, now presenter as well on the TV, was actually at her former club, Leafield. So it looked like a real successful day. There's about 100 people in a photograph with her, maybe an exaggeration, 50 to 100. But it's nice to see. So it's on their social media. Feel free to have a look on there for a bit more information. But very exciting league. Even the mid-table could go absolutely anywhere. Barnsley's scored 14 goals already. Some good results there, but very, very exciting to see how this goes.
Absolutely, and to be fair, John says there's 2 clubs in this one that he really likes, but Leafield and Worcester are almost like his favourite cousins, so they're very much within there as well. So let's not be pretending that there's not a third of this league that you are quite fond of, Jonathan. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Gareth, was there anything particular that stuck out here for you, or not? Don't feel like you have to, but if you don't want to silence you.
No, not really. If I'm being 100% honest, isn't necessarily a league I've been paying too much attention to. Purely just from trying to wrap my head around all of the various things that I need to do now in my now that we're a National League club. So yeah, it's been a bit mad. There's what I will say, just kind of on a tangent, the difference, and I'm sure that John and members of all of the other promoted clubs will attest to, that the kind of expectations on clubs this year it is a real step up, and there's things that I think coming from the regional league that we have access to now that we didn't before. I think often people kind of say that the money needs to be filtered down from the top down to the bottom, and like there's some grants and things that are available, and kind of a whole host of other things that I just think are fantastic. I'm sure other people will agree. One thing that I've particularly been a fan of is that clubs are expected to upload footage of the games to a central sharing point. So, you don't no longer need to try and message opposition managers and trade links for VO footage, etc. Everything is there, and that everyone has access to your footage, and that you have access to everyone's footage. So, from your league specifically, so if we got an FA Cup draw against Kidderminster, for example, we wouldn't be able to go back and watch it all. But just small things I think that are really noticeable on that step up. John will jump back in. Sorry, Barry, I've set him off again.
You did.
Sorry, it's a small one, but I like this one because what Gareth said there is now that footage is more accessible. I think more managers and coaches obviously are aware of that. So in the old days, let's say the old days, some managers and coaches didn't like players uploading videos of their goals or good defensive blocks or saves or whatever, because you're giving away information. Whereas I think now that the information is available, I've seen so much more VO footage on social media where the players are highlighting themselves and the teammates. And I think it's exciting because as a fan, we want to kind of see these goals. So if I'm not at that game, say if I'm at a Kidderminster Harriers game and I've got a friend at Leafield and I want to see their goal, I can actually see that now, and the managers and coaches aren't saying, no, don't upload anything because we don't want to give any information away. So just touching on that little point, I thought that's a big positive from a fan point of view.
I mean, I actually think it's quite an important thing. I think it should be available, even within the WSL. I mean, I've long been an advocate that you should still be able to see the pre-season games. The fact that they're putting these behind closed doors because they don't want people to see what it is that they are, what they're planning, I suppose. Just it frustrates me. Like, it really irks me because you just don't get this anywhere else in football. Just let people see it, and you've got to feel like surely that's going to help some of the coaches as well, actually, and the standard of the product. Because if you do that, you're going to be in a situation where the coaches have to react to the fact that they can't just play the same way all the time, and that people might spot what it is they're doing. And so as a result, they might actually sit there and have to come up with some different formations and some different things. And who knows, maybe we'll see like a Mighty Ducks flying V or something in a particular game. You just never know what you might see. So it would be nice to see a little bit more of that, and I agree. I think it's got to be a good thing. Daniel's still in the chat, which is lovely to see. Not's my old team. Go on, girls. There you go. They're not doing too badly at all. If you keep on cheering from enough, Daniel, I'm sure that John will add that to his list. He's quite easy in that respect. Here he goes. There you go. It's happening.
So, Notts County have actually got a good relationship with, obviously, their university, who's got a great relationship with Swiss Sport Radio that I'm a part of. So there's currently 3 students at Nottingham University who go to Notts County and report on their games. So feel free to get in touch with them, mate, and have a little collaboration, work together on it.
I'll be honest, I don't think there's anybody else left on the bingo sheet. We've even managed to get the commentary in, which is very impressive, John, for week 1. You've gone all out on making sure they're all in there. Absolutely love that. Brilliant stuff. Right, we're going to move into the Southeast now. And of course, lots going on in the Southeast for us. There are 2 teams that have come up. They are Fulham and Luton Town. Fulham coming from the London and South East Regional. And as you can see, they have had an absolutely barnstorming start to this season. 3 games played, 3 games won. And you can't really ask for too much more than that. They've beaten Norwich 4-2 in their last game. Norwich have been a side who have been in the Southeast Division 1 for certainly as long as I can remember, and a side there that are doing incredibly well. They've also managed to beat Actonians, see above for what I just said about Norwich City, perennial teams that do well in the Division 1 there as well. So they've had a couple of really good results, and again Fulham 2, Cambridge United 1. So all three of them, they're defeating teams that have been in and around this league for an incredibly long amount of time. So Fulham with a superb start for them. Luton, it's been a little bit harder for them. Had a great start when they turned up, 3-1 win over Dulwich Hamlet, who struggled a little bit last season. But it was a good win for them and something that they should have been incredibly proud of. But they fell 5-0 to Cambridge United as well, and then 4-0 to Actonian. So you can sort of see the difference there between how Fulham have managed to invest and push their side and how Luton have obviously tried. I'm not suggesting they're not investing at all, but certainly it is Fulham who have managed to weather the early games against these established sides. That's the word I was looking for, quite well. One of the other sides, of course, is MK Dons. They were relegated last season with a horrendous goal difference. They had a really difficult start to their time in the Southern Premier. They were a side, and then all of their players went and disappeared, and all of a sudden they were just left with a youth squad eventually. MK Dons did superbly to see the season out and do everything they were supposed to do. They're not by any stretch of the imagination, as we know, see Billericay, the side that have got the worst goal difference in the WNL this season, but unfortunately it started off very much the same sort of way. 3 games played for them, still no wins. I think they only managed to draw a game last season. I don't think they actually won one. So it's going to be really interesting, and I really do hope that the MK Dons can find a little bit of form, find a way to get a win, to try and change their trajectory, because at the moment they are just free falling through both of the leagues, and it's not nice to see when that happens. So those are your big 3 in terms of what has been happening there. London Bees, a side that Stevenage played in pre-season. They're a very good side as well. And between them and Fulham, they are the undefeated teams in the league. London Bees, obviously, with a 4-0 win over MK Dons. So that does explain some of what they did there. But they also beat AFC Sudbury 8-2. And Cheshire United 4-0. So that's why their goal difference is incredibly high. But yeah, some superb sides in there. Queen's Park Rangers, who again have been an established side in this particular league. And you do find that, I think, in the Southeast Division 1. I don't know if you guys in the North and the Midlands find the same sort of thing, but like the same old teams that have just sort of been there and you expect to see. They've never really made it up into the top echelons and got promoted, but they're also never really too close to relegation. They're just sort of the stalwarts that you're used to playing, and that's very much what we've got there in the Division 1 Southeast. And it's interesting, these guys are saying how these leagues, their favourite leagues. I genuinely love them all here in the WNL. I think that there's so many good leagues going on, and the stories, as we say, are very important. So these guys have sort of run through some of the fixtures. I suppose for me, looking at the big ones, Fulham are away to Dulwich Hamlet. You would imagine, based on their start, that they could go off and get another 3 points there away from home. And if they manage to do that, that would be quite interesting. London Bees have got the more tricky fixture, I think, as they face Chatham Town at home. And as you can see, Chatham, who again did incredibly well last season, are up there again this year. So listen, 3 games played, you absolutely can't look at the league and say, well, this is how it's going to be, but you can certainly see how it is starting to shake out. And I genuinely do think it is going to be quite some season in the Division 1 South East. Don't think it's going to be quite like last year, where Real Bedford just raced through and pretty much dominated the entire thing. So it will be interesting, I think, to see where they go. You two, is there anything that sort of stood out for you? If I remember distinctly this time last year, Gareth was telling me off a little bit about the Southeast, saying, what do you reckon about this side? And it was a very good point that he made. Anything that I've missed this year, do you think, Gazza?
No, I think that this is going to be a really competitive league. I think, Bees will be looking to go straight back up. It wasn't that long ago they were a championship club. Fulham will obviously be looking to go straight through as well. Then you've got the likes of Norwich, who always sort of seem to be the bridesmaid and never actually managed to pop that dress on themselves. And they will be looking to do that this season. So, yeah, I think it's going to be super competitive. It looks like MK Dons are in for another difficult year, but hopefully they can kind of stem the flow, so to speak, and we can have a super competitive top and bottom of the league.
Yeah, John, anything for you?
Nothing major, just on the MK Dons. It's a shame because they do seem to be doing a lot of things right. The players seem to be treated really well. The facilities are good. The social media is really good. The graphics are good on the socials. It does seem like they pay a lot of attention to the women's side in regards to equality and that kind of thing as well. Even things like putting club posters up, they always include like a women's player, but not just a men's player. And yeah, it's just a shame that isn't filtering onto the pitch at the moment, but I don't know why that is. I'm not close enough to it. But no, I do wish that they do at least find a bit of stability in this league.
Yeah, you mentioned the photography. I believe it's done by a gent called Chris Foxwell for MK Dons, and he does get about. Sometimes does Luton, I think, as well. He came down to do one of our games, bless him, when Ed wasn't around, and great photography. Goes off, and what he gets is drone footage as well sometimes. So he'll do like a little drone photo before the game, which is always a nice view that you wouldn't usually get when you pull your iPhone or your Android out of your pocket, because nobody's going to set the timer on that and just throw their phone up in the air, are they? And it certainly would come out quite blurry. So there we go. Well, that is the Division 1 South East, which leaves us with just one league to look at now. We did mention that Stu Barker is the guy who would often pop on and give us a hand. He's had a little bit of trouble getting his kids to sleep this week. That's no problem at all. We are going to have a little look at it together. It's the Division 1 Southwest, and there it is. And I'm pleased to say Swindon Town sitting top and pretty of the league. Those that don't know, it's where I was born. So it's very nice to see the mighty Swindon doing well. It's not often I think I've had the chance to say that in my lifetime. I seem to remember them being in the Premier League once, and it was the worst season I think they've ever had. So that was sad times for Swindon. But yes, a very good season. They're the only side that are 100% in terms of winning all their games. Moneyfields and Bristol Rovers not losing, but drawing a game each. Where to go with this one? So we have got Ascot. They came up from the Southwest Regional, and then you had, or was it? No, they might have come from the Southern. Sorry, and Marine Academy Plymouth would have come from the Southwest. That makes more sense, certainly geographically. So that's the way that happened. Marine Academy. That's such a mouthful. Marine Academy Plymouth did incredibly well in the start of this season. 4 points for them, which is very good for them to see. Ascot struggling just a tad. And Portishead, as you can see, bottom of the table, they were another side that got a reprieve. And they're another side that got a reprieve that are not quite managing to start their season the way they would like to, because they certainly wouldn't want to be seeing more of the same. But this is where we are. Some incredible results already. Certainly the match you've got to bring out was one from the first weekend. I remember looking at this and thinking, blimey, what a game that must have been. And it involved Portishead Town because they managed to score 4 goals at home, and you think to yourself, surely that's enough to get a win. Unfortunately, it's not, because Worthing managed to score 5. It was a 9-goal thriller, and you'd be absolutely gutted, I think, if you were to be playing in that game and find out that is what happened. Marine Academy Plymouth, bless them, showed Portishead how to do that the next week because they scored 4 and Portishead didn't manage it. But that was certainly the biggest game that I saw when looking at this one. Fixture-wise, I'm not convinced there was anything hugely major. Ascot and Portishead are playing each other this weekend, and that will, of course, be vital for the bottom two. It could well be that they share the points, but if Ascot or Portishead can get a win there, that would certainly set their season up a little bit brighter than it currently is. Marine Academy Plymouth, they are facing Swindon Town, so that will be quite an interesting game going on there. Bournemouth Sports, they struggled a little bit last season. They're up against Keynsham Town, so there's a little bit of a tight gap between the two of them there, and would be remiss if we didn't mention Moneyfields, who are doing incredibly well at the moment as well. They're playing Abingdon, so you would probably think they should be able to get the result, and Bristol Rovers are away to Worthing. So lots going on there in the southwest. Gaza, John, anything catching your eye over there?
Just from me, that just again, it looks dead competitive. There are clubs there that were there or thereabouts last year with Moneyfields, who were there or thereabouts at the start of this season. Swindon have obviously started the season fantastically, but it's early days, and it looks like we're going to have a fantastic season up and down the National League.
Yeah, not much more than that, really. I just agree with Gareth. It does look very competitive. And you mentioned Moneyfields. I'm sure Stu was here. He'd be able to say a bit more. But you do expect those three teams to be pushing. Will anybody else break into there? Possibly. It's still early doors in the T10. It also depends on who's played who already. So, it does. It looks like an exciting league, and looking forward to hearing more about it.
It does, for sure. And of course, after that, there is the third and final game to take place in the WNL Cup. Now, we would obviously usually spend a bit more time talking about the WNL Cup, but there are 24 leagues. There's a lot of leagues. It's a bit, no, 22. There are 22. I was right. 22 groups currently that they need to go through, and that's a lot of groups, although I've updated it. So if you get on TikTok and Twitter later on, you'll see it all there. But a really convoluted way of trying to split these up. Hello,
can I just jump in with this? And it's chaos the way that it works. I can't quite remember exactly how many second place teams go into the cup and how many into the plate. However,
I've got that information here. I can tell you that there's going to be the 22 group winners going to the cup, along with the 10 best runners up, and then the remainder of the runners up, the 12 others, will go into the plate, along with the 20 best third place teams, and everybody else gets midweek off.
However, it's actually weekends. It's weekends that the games are meant to be drawn on. So
weekends.
What I will say is I'm going to give Women's Football Chat a shout out. He's been on the show before. He has a fantastic graphic that he puts up where he ranks all of the second place teams in a table, all of the third place teams in a table. It's color coded. It's fantastic. It's what I use when I want to know where things are. So if you are ever unsure and you want to see who's second, but are they likely to get through, you don't necessarily need to go through all 22 groups and try and remember in your head how many points everyone has, because it's already done for you. So go and check that out for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. He does superb work there. I've just found it on Twitter for you. It's W Football Chat, and of course, if it belonged to me, I would stick it up there for you to be able to see. But it's not mine, and whilst I'm sure he wouldn't shout at me too much, it's not my property, so I'm not going to do it. But there we go. Needless to say, it's very nice. It's very good, and as Gareth says, beautifully color coded with all of the 22 teams that are currently leading their league. And I think there's been some really interesting things going on there. John, I know that you've kept your eye on what's been going on with the WNL Cup. Obviously a lot still to happen, and there are still a lot of places that are up for grabs. For example, there are teams that are going to make the plate that currently are doing so, having won 0 games whatsoever, but just happen to have a reasonable goal difference compared to some of the others. What do you reckon about the way in which this is? I mean, the fact that you've got to have like a calculator and all of those sorts of things to work it out is it just there's too many groups? Could they have done it a bit better? Is there a better way? I don't know. It feels like a lot.
I think they have to even it out, don't they? So it's like when it's a knockout stage, it has to be like divisible by 2, I guess, like 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. So I get why he's got 22 and 10. I get the logic behind that kind of thing. But yeah, there probably is an easier way. I suppose they have to look at the geographical. They have to look at how many games that they're playing throughout the week. Obviously, you've got extra games now, but you don't want too many extra games. I know that there's some managers that's not a big fan of it because there are too many games. I think as a fan, I like the idea of a league format and then someone goes through, but I think there is too many calculations there. It would be nice to be able to figure out a way. Maybe there's not a way. I haven't figured it out myself, but first and second to go through and third and fourth to go into a different cup. I'm sure there's probably some sort of way there. But it is exciting because if you're a team, well, it doesn't matter where you are in the league, but if you're not doing too well in the league, and then you can actually look out for the cup competitions as well. So, it is, from a fan's point of view, a bit of a break from the league. If you're losing games, you can look at, okay, so this is a different team, different league, different area. It does give you something to look forward to. And also play teams that you may not usually play. So I don't mind the National League Cup, but yeah, the structure does seem very, very confusing.
I was just going to say, it wouldn't be possible to have the top 2 teams go into the cup and then the bottom 2 go into the play, because you end up with 44 teams, which you'd end up having to have bye rounds, and then you'd have to decide who gets the bye and who doesn't. It feels like the only real way of doing it. Otherwise, you'd end up having 16 teams in a competition. So yeah, I don't know what the solution is. I like the idea of a group stage. I'm still skeptical about PGAs being in the competition, even though we got our record attendance when United PGA came to Wythenshawe, 466, which was 150 people more than our previous record. So there is that sense of additional money for some of these smaller teams that don't get to play big teams. We also put PGA really small on the graphics, or hid it at the bottom of the caption. So when you looked at the picture, you just saw 2 badges. But yeah, I think my personal opinion is that this is part of preparation to expand the leagues. So they're doing it as a trial run to see how they can fit in an extra however many games in the season, an extra 2 games in the season, 3, however many. And then if that works out and it manages to work particularly well, they go, actually, we've been able to fit those extra games in at the start of the season. It's worked quite nicely. We can now look at expanding the leagues up to 14 teams.
It's one of that. I mean, I don't dislike it, but I mean, obviously, I spent most of last night and a bit of today going through all the league tables and doing our little graphics to go out that are nowhere near as good as the Women's Football Chat in terms of showing how those teams go through. And I just think at the lower league level, I just think it's a little bit tricky. I think if you've got to, like I say, get out a handbook and work out all these sorts of things and try and work out whereabouts in 21 other leagues your team fits in terms of where you're going to go, I just think in the nicest possible way, there's not a huge amount of people that are really super interested in what's going on below the WSL and the WSL2. It's a growing fan base, but it's not a huge fan base. And I think if you're asking them to do a lot of legwork, they're not necessarily going to want to spend all of their time trying to do that. And it then falls to people like the Women's Football Chat and podcasts such as this to try and inform people easily as to what's going on. And that's not really the easiest thing to do. But I agree. I don't know. Maybe it's a case of making the group's just a little bit bigger so that there are fewer access points in that respect. It's got to be doable, surely. There might be a way, but I don't know. I think it was quite
Just
good.
one more on that one, Barry,
Yeah.
just very quickly before we go. Are there many teams out there that would prefer to be in the plate and do some calculated? Because that's even harder to calculate, because you can't come fourth, and you can't come first, and you can't come the bottom 14 of the other 12 or whatever. It's a lot of calculating, because I'm sure there will be some teams out there that would rather be in the plate because you stand a bit more of a chance of going through further into the season.
Yeah, no, again, and that's the thing. People will look at it that way, and I don't know. Maybe the having the PGA teams in is part of the problem, insofar as it does expand the number of teams that are in there. But again, the number of teams that are in there is worked out reasonably well in terms of having 64 teams, so that you can have the knockout competition. But yeah, it's a very, very interesting one. But there we go. I did go and watch a WNL Cup match. I went to watch Luton face the Spurs PGA team. And it's quite a good game. I don't know if you saw the tweets that we were doing, but it had just about everything. There was 2 red cards, both to Spurs, and there was a proper ding dong right at the very end. There was a bit of a juicy tackle, shall we say? And before you knew it, there was 22 women all in one great big huddle, sort of pushing and shoving. And yeah, it's not something you often see in football. And yeah, it was certainly full-blooded. So as much as people might say the WNL Cup is not necessarily having much of a soul just yet, it certainly still has a lot of people that are interested. There we go. Well, that is one more week of Lower League Lingo completed. Chaps, it's been a pleasure to have you both here. As I said, next week and next time, we will be having a look at Tier 5, which, of course, has 8 leagues, which is the same amount as we've just looked at today. So all is well there. For those that are new, we'll be looking at the Northwest and Northeast Regional League. I doubt we'll look too much at the Midlands, to be honest with you. There won't be much to talk about. That'll take 5 minutes. John will just tick a couple of teams off of his bingo list, and that'll be job done there. But that's the East Midlands and the West Midlands. We'll be looking at the Eastern region and the London and South East, which is down obviously my way, and of course the Southern Regional and the Southwest Regional. So those are the 8 teams. But yeah, there we go. Gareth, congratulations with all that's going on Wythenshawe. I don't know if you spoke properly, but you're on the board now there, which is very good. So he's got a proper suit and everything and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, very, very surreal, especially kind of when I think about where all of this journey started was like this, sat in my bedroom talking about football. So yeah, very, very strange and very weird how life works out sometimes, but having a blast, really.
Absolutely. And of course, John, as we mentioned before, spending your time at Stourbridge, you working with the social media with Kiddy. What are you doing this year? Is it just Twitch Sport and going off doing the commentary, or have you got another Midlands team that you're trying to take over this season?
No, obviously, still supporting Stourbridge, still supporting Kiddy Harriers on their socials, but paying a bit more attention to Switch Sport this year. It allows me to network around the area and learn, just keep on learning off many more people. So try and travel around as much as I can when Stourbridge and Kiddy aren't playing.
Super duper. So there we go. Lots of people are absolutely loving Lower League, and obviously you are too, because that's why you came to join us. So thank you very much for spending some time with us. We'll be back hopefully next Wednesday, same time, 8 o'clock, but different leagues. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be a hell of a season. See you next time.